Hi guys, welcome. I'm Brian House with MikeHolt.com, and Mike's out riding his mountain bike tonight somewhere in Colorado. I have no idea where he's at, probably at the top of a mountain. If we get lucky, he's going to call in and we'll actually get to see what he's doing. In the meantime, I figured I'd take an opportunity to share a little bit about some of my passions. I really love a lot of things having to do with the technological side of our industry. And we're going to talk about some pretty exciting stuff tonight, PoE. Before I get started, I would just like to thank God for giving me this opportunity. I really have the best job in the world, guys. I really do. You might think you do, but I can tell you for a fact I've got the best job in the world. Love what I do. I love the opportunity to be able to be here with you guys, to share the things that I've had the opportunity to learn as I've experienced this industry for about 25 years now, and also just being mentored by Mike. It's a tremendous opportunity. Thank you very much for joining us every week and everything you guys have contributed. So before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit tonight about power over Ethernet. And you may or may not know what that is, and that's okay, because as we go through tonight, I'm going to do a couple of things. First of all, I want to kind of share a little bit with you about what power over Ethernet is, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the NEC, but most importantly, we're going to talk about how this will impact you. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but maybe. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is PoE? So PoE is the acronym for Power over Ethernet. It's a technology that has been around, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so now. And what it does is it allows you to use your standard little blue Cat5 cable, and that cable is actually able to carry the data for the equipment that it's controlling, and it's also able to carry the power. Now there's several things in the NEC having to do with power over Ethernet and Class 2 and 3 cabling and circuits. Just kind of a brief reminder for those of you that might not be familiar with Article 725 is 725 covers power limited circuits, control wiring, that type of thing. Specifically, it's going to cover your twisted pair cabling. And 725.121, we're going to talk about a little bit tonight, and that is Class 2 and Class 3 circuits and their power supplies and how we deal with them. And then we're going to get into power over Ethernet and the technology, what's happening in the future. So let's get started. So in 725.121, we talk about Class 2 and Class 3 circuits. And we're going to talk about the power supply specifically in Part 3. And it has to be a listed Class 2 or 3 transformer or a listed Class 2 or 3 power supply. Now, you might be like, what is that? Well, I mean, you're used to seeing them. These are the wall warts that we have. In fact, if you look right here, it says right on it, Class 2 transformer, maybe a little exposed open type transformer here. The key here is it has to be listed. Has to say on it that's Class 2 or Class 3. You can't make one of these. Now there's some other things that can power Class 2 and Class 3 circuits. Equipment listed as Class 2 or Class 3 power source. So there could be some piece of equipment, we're going to talk about what that might be in a few minutes, that's listed as a Class 2 or Class 3 power source. Listed audio video or IT equipment, or a battery source or a battery source system that's listed and identified as a Class 2 circuit. And this is important because these are the things that are actually, this whole area has kind of exploded in the last 2 code cycles. And, I can remember, not even 2 years ago, I'm sitting at the first code making panel meeting in Hilton Head, South Carolina, and I'm talking to these guys, and they're saying, man, we're struggling to keep up with this stuff because it's actually not even out yet, but it's changing so fast that we have to have rules in the NEC for installers to be able to know what to do with this stuff and make a safe installation. And we're making rules for things that are not even on the market. we don't even have standards for. We're just trying to forecast where it's going to go. And these are really sharp guys, and they're very connected in the industry. And so they had a real good idea. I'm talking guys from Cisco and guys from Siemens and guys from the Bixby and all the shakers and movers in the low voltage industry. They were there, and they really did a pretty good job, to be honest with you. Both in 2017 and this code cycle, they have really just brought about some significant changes. And that is the first thing that we need to take note, because anytime you start seeing changes in the NEC, typically indicates that there's something on the horizon that you may or may not be aware of. So when all this happened, I'm like, why are we worried about Class 2 and Class 3? Like, this has never been something on my radar as an electrical contractor, as an electrician, really as an instructor. And then I started looking into it, and I said, interesting. So we're looking at 725.121c. It says the power sources for limited power circuits for listed audio and video equipment, listed information technology equipment, shall have a label indicating the maximum voltage and rated output per conductor for each connection point on the power source. I read that and I'm like, who cares? Like, why are we putting stuff in here for a label? So I asked some questions. And as I kind of looked through this, I was like, there's a lot of stuff in here about Class 2 and Class 3. Matter of fact, if we look at this 725.121c, it references 725.144, A1 through 3, and it tells us about how the labels are supposed to be made. And I'm like, man, a lot of effort, and you'll notice everything shaded gray here is new. A lot of effort was put into this. And as I asked questions and started looking at things, I realized, you could carry a lot of power realistically with these Class 2 and Class 3 circuits. And then somebody said, hey, this is about power over Ethernet. And I was like, oh, so the markings are about power over Ethernet switches. Bingo. Okay, well now my curiosity is just like, I just took off, because I'm like, okay, what's going on? What's new? What did I miss? Something happened and I missed it. And the reality was it was happening. I hadn't missed it yet. So if we look on this listed piece of equipment, we see that this switch has a label that says that it supplies 150 watts of power. And if you look right over here, it tells you that it's got 24 volts. This is a Ubiquity switch. Here's a switch by a company called Cisco. You may not be familiar with Ubiquity, but I'm sure if you've been around this industry for any period of time, you are very familiar with Cisco. They're a big company. They were one of the players that came to the table and really were proponents of a lot of these changes and additions that were made in the 2020 NEC as it had to do with power over Ethernet. So the first question, anytime I see something, is I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in this code book. Why do I care? Like, why would I possibly care about power over Ethernet? Now, the techie side of me, okay, it's super cool and it's fun, but I'm a busy guy. Mike and I are constantly just trying to keep up with what's happening in the code, what's happening in the next cycle, what happened in the previous cycle. And I wasn't sure I had a lot of bandwidth for this, but as I started thinking about this, I realized, this is a pretty big topic. It really is, because this addresses what's called a disruptive technology. Now, a disruptive technology is something that just changes the way the industry functions. And so, for instance, let's talk about Kodak, the Kodak moment. We used to have, most of us, a 35 millimeter camera or a Polaroid or something of that nature. Well, when digital cameras came out, it was a disruptive technology to the camera industry. Unfortunately, the giant in the industry, well, both of them really, Polaroid and Kodak, failed to respond to the digital camera revolution. And now, of course, we've got on our cell phones a camera that's better than any 35 millimeter camera you've ever had. Now, I understand some of you guys probably still have a dark room and it's in your bathroom and you're still developing 35 millimeter film strips, and I did it with my dad, and it was really cool, but I sure do like the ability to be able to just point and shoot, and I can get a multi-megapixel image that I can share instantly on social media or send to my parents or send to my kids. It was a disruptive technology, and the people that did not embrace it are gone. The people that did are still here. Apple, Samsung, these are examples of people that embraced this new technology and said, okay, really what we're doing is we're selling people a camera that has a phone built in it, not selling people a phone that has a camera built in it. And whoever has the fanciest camera and the most features wins. Internet infrastructure. Let me tell you, I remember, oh gosh, I don't know when I think I first wrote my first piece of computer software was about 13 years old. But I remember somewhere around there, plus or minus a few years, that we got like AOL or Prodigy or one of those, and it was dial-up. And anything you did was so painful. Like you hit download on something and you might as well just go have a meal or leave and come back because it was going to be that long because we were connecting through phone lines. And then along came broadband internet in the form of DSL. And as that happened, it changed the landscape of the internet because now we were able to deliver pictures. And then we were able to deliver video. And then we went from plain text websites to multimedia websites. It was a disruptive technology. And the people that got on board survived, and the people that didn't are gone. Transportation. A recent example of disruptive technology, Uber, right? Uber came on the scene just killing the taxis. I'm pretty sure the taxi cab drivers hate Uber. Some of them maybe they might be Uber drivers now. I don't know. What I know is I like Uber because it's a different experience than the taxis. They changed the landscape of transportation. And so we'll see if the taxis are able to adapt and the limousine services are able to adapt to what Uber's done to the market. But if they don't, 10 years from now, it'll just be another thing we're talking about that was in the past and it happened and it's gone. Same thing with IoT. We all have connected devices now everywhere. Well, pretty soon you're going to discover that all of these pieces of equipment that we used to have that weren't connected, we are now so accustomed to telling Alexa or Siri, hey, turn on the coffee maker. I just the other day saw an advertisement, I think it was for Delta faucets. And you can say, Delta, give me 18 ounces of water that's 105 degrees or whatever, and it'll put 18 ounces of water in the pot for you. This is the Internet of Things, and the people that don't jump on that bandwagon will be the ones that get left behind. The common theme between all of these, if you look right down here on this little graphic, and by the way, just for any of you that are interested, this PowerPoint is available. We don't usually give away our PowerPoints. This particular PowerPoint I'm happy to share with you. In fact, at the end, I won't show them as part of this presentation, but at the end, there's 3 or 4 slides that's just a whole bunch of web links of just different things that I found over time as I've researched this and just kind of learned about this topic. So if you're interested in this, send me an email to brian@mikeholt.com. And I'll be more than happy to send you a link where you can download this presentation and maybe read through more of it. I'm not going to be able to get deep into this because it's a very big topic, and I want to just kind of do a little surface brush over for those of you that are interested. But those that want to do some more research might enjoy having a copy of it. So back to the slide here, the adoption curve. The common thread between all these different scenarios is we have people that are early adopters of a technology and people that are late adopters. Now, those of you that are electricians and you're like, would you just get on with it? What are you even talking about here? I'm doing all this because those people that are early adopters are the ones that are going to be successful, and those that aren't are not going to be successful. And if we think about the evolution of light, we started out with some cavemen, and I've got cool little video that I'd love to show, but every time we show it, we get flagged on YouTube and Facebook for showing it, even though we're showing somebody's cool video. So I can't, but you got some cavemen, they started out with fire, that was their source of light. Then they figured out, hey, it's kind of hard to carry around fire. And so they put some animal fat in a little pot, and then they carried around a little pot with a wick, and that was a lamp. And then somehow they figured out you could take some wax and a little piece of string and make a candle, and that was a little bit better. And then somebody realized, hey, all of these run out pretty quick, but if we put a wick inside of a glass globe and a lantern, and it won't blow out, we can carry it, we can carry a lot more fuel. That was a game changer. And then the next game changer was the electric light bulb. We won't go into that whole story with Edison, and he was a good businessman, but he didn't invent the light bulb, just for the record. He just perfected it. But as time has gone on, then we had better light bulbs, then we had the compact fluorescents. I mean, how many of you guys remember putting in a curly Q light bulb? When those things came out, we were like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. This is going to replace every light bulb in the world. And they weren't hardly out 4 or 5 years, and then we had LEDs. And LED lamps came out, and of course they were like $15 a piece. So we were like, I don't know if that's going to take off. But now, go to Home Depot or Lowe's. I mean, you can get a pack of them for $15. So time goes on, and the people that adopted LED early and adopted LED retrofits early, they had opportunities to make a lot of money. So now let's talk about what we're talking about and how this impacts you and why you should be possibly looking at some business opportunities that are about to pop up ahead of you. So why would we be interested in PoE? Well, let's back up and look at the industry as a whole. Now, even with everything that's going on in the world today, we have a labor shortage of skilled, trained electrical professionals. You can never find enough people to staff a job. Even if you do find enough people, there are never enough of them that are qualified. And this is why there's been an explosion in the trades. There's people trying to learn trades, and people trying to train the people that are learning the trades, and people that are trying to qualify the people that are training, we have a labor shortage. And that labor shortage doesn't just impact us. We often forget that actually impacts the customer as well. Because when the customer wants something, we're in a society now where when you want something, you want it now, you don't want to wait. And many times, if you're not able to do the job when the customer wants, they're going to turn to somebody else or something else to fill the need that they have. And this is especially true in the commercial industry. Well, PoE, because it allows equipment to be connected both to the network and to be provided power in a single cable, it also allows us to hook up equipment in many areas with a regular plug-in Cat6 cable without an electrical license. Now, every time I say that, everybody's like, oh, in my area, you have to have an electrical license. Well, let me tell you why people use licensed electricians. Because they're scared. They don't really want to use a licensed electrician because we cost a lot of money. And we take a long time to get a job done, and we have inspections, and we're complicated, and I don't know, depending on the company, maybe it takes a while to get a quote, and then it takes a while to get it scheduled, and then it takes a while to get it done, and then people just want us out of their hair, and they can't get rid of us because electricity is scary, can kill people. Well, PoE is, as the NEC defines it, the ability for circuits to transmit power and data to a powered device. Now, one interesting note in here, it says with circuits that are copper. And the reason that's in there, and I just want to point this out for those of you guys that are investigating, I have a link in the end of the presentation talking about copper versus copper-clad aluminum. Now, we have copper-clad aluminum in the NEC now for power conductors, and when I say power, I'm talking about our line voltage. But copper-clad aluminum has actually been a part of the low-voltage industry for a while. It's got some downsides, and because we're talking about now carrying power over these little tiny 20-something gauge conductors, they're saying, hey, we can't control how these things are manufactured. We can't control how much of the copper cladding's on there. It just has to be a copper conductor. And for those of you that aren't familiar with how to tell copper versus copper clad, you have somebody tell you, oh, you got to cut it or break it and look at it with a magnifying glass. Much easier way. You pick up a box of what you know is good cable, and you pick up another box, both brand new, the copper clad's much lighter. So if you ever pick up a box that looks full, but it feels like it's half full, copper clad aluminum, every time. So let's talk about a couple of the informational notes here, and then we're going to get on to kind of some of the fun stuff about PoE, and we'll stop and check for some questions before we get going. So PoE equipment typically connects with a connector. We all know what they look like. It's kind of like an overgrown telephone jack. Well, those connectors have a current carrying capacity of 1 amp per individual pin. There's 8 pins on there. We'll talk about why that might be important here in just a second. There's a table that kind of details how to calculate how many amps, the temperature correction or ampacity adjustment would be for a particular type of multi-conductor cable. But it says carrying power and data, if we look right here, over a 4-pair copper balanced twisted pair cable. That's just your normal Cat, well, we used to call it Cat 5, but it's, Cat 6 and 6A and probably 7 and 8 and 9. I don't even know what we're up to now. But it's your category rated cables. Just another couple things to note here. If we look at the graphic, there's some ANSI and NEMA standards for lighting systems. One of them is called Minimum Requirements for the Installation of Energy Efficient Power over Ethernet Lighting Systems. And then this note here says rated current for power sources covered in 725.144 is the output current per conductor the power source is designed to deliver at an operational load. The rated current per conductor can vary by as much as 20%. So notice that as we're talking about this, in our brains we always think about cables and we're like, well, it's a piece of 14.2 and we can only put it on a 15 amp breaker. This has 8 conductors, and these cables are designed that they're in pairs, and each of those pairs is actually a circuit that can carry power, and that each of those pins can carry 1 amp. So now each pair in that cable can carry 1 amp, which means in a cable with 4 pairs, I can carry up to 4 amps. And that's the limitation of the connector. That's not the limitation of the conductors necessarily. So just kind of keep that in mind. They put in a table, I think this was put in 2017, and I could be wrong. And if one of you guys wants to chime in, maybe research or Mario, and let me know when table 725 was added. But they put in a cable to make it a little simpler for those of us that are installing Cat 5 or Cat 6 cables in larger quantities to determine, okay, how much power can we use in these cables? Because they don't really have a label on them that says you can use X amount of power. And here it is, and you'll see that this is from 1 all the way up to 192 in a bundle. Pretty cool. I mean, it's just simple. We know how to use tables. We're electricians. So no problem. I got this covered. And this is what it might look like. You might come into a room. Probably many of you guys have pulled cable here. Some of you guys might be in the industry and you've terminated to 110 blocks or 110 punch downs. Well, our industry, we're pretty smart guys. But the low voltage guys, well, let me tell you, they always have an angle. They're always thinking. And they ask themselves, they're like, how can we make this easier? How can we make this easier so that it's foolproof? And they came up with a really good idea. And I got to be honest with you, when I saw what they did, I was like, man, why didn't we think of that like 100 years ago? Because it would have simplified a lot of things. Matter of fact, we could have probably cut a lot of the code book out if we had thought of doing it the way they had done this. So here's what they did. They came up with limited power cables. What's a limited power cable? Well, it's a cable certified by UL to carry a certain load at a given temperature. And here's what that kind of means. They say, hey, this cable is suitable for carrying power and data up to a specific current limit for each conductor without exceeding the temperature rating of the cable. So as we hopefully know, if you've studied some of our other materials, you know that there's insulation on a conductor, there's insulated jacket on a cable. These have a temperature rating. might be 60 degrees. Typically, if we're dealing with power conductors, 75 degrees or 90 degrees. And that is really not the copper. It's actually the insulation and the cable jacket that we have to worry about heating up when we're carrying current. And so that's the damage that we're really concerned about. We're not concerned about so much the copper conductor. Usually the copper conductor is going to fail far, far, far after the insulation. So LP cables might be needed for a lot of things. Power supplying equipment that's capable of powering over 60 watts, equipment higher than PoE Type 3. And it's important to understand how they do that, okay? They do that by bundling, at UL for the testing, 192 cables. So you take 192 cables, put them in a bundle. You can see it in the picture here. 6 feet long, so there's a 6 foot long piece of, looks like PVC in this case. They stuffed insulation in both ends of it, and they start applying current at 48 volts. And they just keep raising the current until it reaches the temperature rating that the insulation is rated for. And you're like, that seems kind of strange that they would do it that way, but here's what it does. This is why this is so cool. This actually allows us to have a piece of cable that says that it's good for 6.7 amps. Size isn't even relevant. I mean, how cool would it be if you could pull a roll of wire off the truck, pull out a piece of THHN and look at it and go, 20 amps. Done. I don't have to know anything else. Matter of fact, I would know if I put a 20 amp wire on a 20 amp breaker, life is good. I don't have to calculate anything. That's essentially what they did here. Now, they're able to do this because they're dealing with a very specific type of power supply, and that's these Class 2 and Class 3 power supplies. So don't get any ideas. Of course, I don't know. There's pretty smart people out there. Maybe somebody will figure out how to do this with building wiring. I hope they do. But in the meantime, they only have this for low voltage. So we have some different classes of PoE, and I just thought I'd run down them. I'm not going to get deep into this stuff. Again, I have a lot of information at the end of this PowerPoint. If you want to download it, more than happy to give it to you so you can read it. But we have classes 1, 2, 3, 4, and even far beyond class 4 now, where they're ranging from, it looks like 0.44 watts all the way up to 25.5 watts per pair. That's the key to remember. It's per pair. So, I mean, what could you power with a PoE cable? Because that's the next question. Like, who cares? So what, who cares? Well, you know, you could power IP cameras. We've all seen those. You know, that's the cameras. You got one Cat5 cable going to it. Maybe it has a little head that pan tilt zooms. Phones. Matter of fact, I can't see it, but I got one sitting right over here next to me. Power over Ethernet phone. It takes power from the switch. You plug it into the phone. It runs the whole phone. You don't have to plug it into the wall. Access points for your Wi-Fi. You know what? I'm not even going to read all this stuff. Let's go to some pictures. I love it when I got a good picture. Here's what PoE devices include. We talked about some of the internet stuff. Maybe some of the stuff that you're more or less familiar with. We've got splitters and switches and hubs. Here's a phone. Here we have a camera system. Here we have a wireless access point. But what about some equipment? I mean, what equipment would PoE power? Because that's really what we're concerned about. We're electricians. We're into installing things and solving problems. Well, let's start with low voltage because, you know, it seems like low voltage stuff, cables, data. Well, here's a really cool thing. Those of you guys that do building access control, this is an entire door controller powered by PoE, including the switch to open and close the door. And depending on the type of door controller and the type of lock, you can even run the lock from these. Clocks. Anybody that does institution work, I'm sure you're familiar with doing clocks, maybe even installing these already. This is a power over Ethernet powered clock, which allows the institution to keep all the clocks exactly the same. Also allows them to update them all at the same time when there's a time change. Distributed audio. Now, this is cool. This is network connected audio. This means you could put speakers all over the place, and you could have one thing playing in this room, one thing playing in that room, something different in here, but you could run the same cable to each one of them, and you don't need any power. We're still on low voltage stuff, but we're in Article 725, so everything we're talking about is low voltage. Hold on to your horses because it's about to get exciting. We talked about wireless access points, whatever. It's still all in the territory of the low voltage IT guys. This hasn't really infringed on my world as an electrician yet. But this is a little sobering. Here's a whole entire desktop computer that does not need a wall plug. In fact, it says, release yourself from the shackles of the AC plug point. Imagine in an office complex if nobody needed 110 to plug in a computer. That could impact our jobs just a little bit. One guy's like, yeah, well, we still need 110 to charge our phones. Well, actually you won't, because I went on Amazon and I Googled PoE USB charger, and this came up instantly. Didn't even have to search. So usually when you can go on Amazon and just put something in the search, and sometimes it pre-fills it and you hit enter and it's there, pretty good indicator that this is not up and coming anymore. This is here. You've seen these in hotels and conference centers, displays. Lots and lots of displays. And we used to have power, and we also would have signal to these displays. And not anymore. Just one single power over Ethernet cable. If you haven't figured this out yet, this is going to impact you. This is a disruptive technology. It is going to change the world that we call our own right now as electricians and electrical contractors. Here's a cool company, Samsung. Those of you guys that are big Samsung fans, I know there's a bunch of you out there. This is a 42-inch flat screen television. Samsung. PoE. Doesn't plug into the wall. I mean, kind of cool. That means you can move it anywhere you want, and as long as you can get a Cat 6 cable to it that you can connect to a PoE switch, you're done. This is the National Geographic Museum. I don't know if you can really tell, but this is actually a video wall. Matter of fact, so is this over here. This is a video wall. This entire video wall, the whole video wall, is powered not by line power, but by power over Ethernet cables. Each of these displays, they're all synchronized, all connected to a computer system, and all powered by power over Ethernet on a data cable, not 110 volts. All right. If this hasn't really hit home yet for you, okay, I understand. Because, I mean, as electricians, what do we really deal with? I mean, when somebody says the power's out, a lot of times they'll say, hey, the lights are out. Because that's what we care about. You're like, whatever. We'll lose a little bit here, a little bit there. Hey, they still got to have a service to the building. They still got to have the lights. I've heard all this stuff. I've had guys come up to me after a seminar. Hey, listen, I heard all this stuff. Let me tell you, this stuff is going to be like everything else. It's a fly-by-night. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Say whatever you want to say. But me, personally, I don't think so. So let me tell you how PoE lighting works. And then we'll talk a little bit about what's available. We'll talk about what's happened. And then we're going to talk about where we're going. So if you go to the graphic here, okay. So here's a typical PoE system. We got a PoE switch, and it's, believe it or not, it's going to connect to the phone. It's going to connect to the lighting, light controllers, occupancy sensors, wall switch. Here's the really cool thing. You don't have to know anything about wiring. All of that is, well, I shouldn't say you don't have to know anything, because you have to know how to install twisted pair wiring, but you literally just plug things together. All of it's done in software. It just works. And it's actually really easy to program. I would have thought that this would have been really complicated, but it's actually, these guys are smart guys writing this software. It's really easy to program. I've got a little video here I'm going to share with you. This is maybe 4 or 5 years old, and this is from one of the early companies that did power over Ethernet. And since they've come out with more products, and we'll discuss some of that, but I just want to show you way back 4 or 5 years ago, and that's a long time in the technology industry, this is what they were doing. So watch this video.
We created new LEDs because we've been working with LEDs for many years, and we've decided to provide control for LEDs. And so now lighting, which has always been a facilities and electrical maintenance type of thing, can now be controlled, monitored, managed by IT infrastructure. You plug it in with a Cat5 cable like you would plug in the back of your computer, and the lights come on. All of a sudden it has an IP address, you can find it, and you can control the lights. The ability to create color mixes with red, green, blue. People can have their own apps, or choosing colors of ambient lights or spotlights, and create these new experiences that we've never thought of before. And beyond efficiency, nothing can be controlled like an LED. So this could really be the biggest thing in lighting since Edison created the light bulb.
All right. How cool is that? I mean, come on. I know that wasn't in somebody's house, but I'm like trying to figure out, how can I buy that stuff? How can I get it to my house? And how can I hook it up? I mean, how cool would it be sitting back in the armchair, whatever your favorite sport is that you might be watching, have some friends over, and you can change the color of the lights, and you can dim, and you're doing it all from your phone. I mean, it's kind of cool. And I don't know if you noticed, but they didn't use any line power. It was all low voltage. Plug in a cable, boop, done. Came up on the screen, push a couple buttons. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going on here. So there's some companies kind of got on board with this. This is how you know it's here to stay. Now, some of these are smaller companies, new LED. Okay, who's heard of them? I don't know. I never heard of them until I watched that video. My guess is they're probably doing pretty good. But then there's this little company here called Philips. Oh, I recognize that name. Philips is a pretty big company. Oh, Hubble. My buddy Brian Rock is watching. I'm sure he knows all about Power Hub. Hubble's got a PoE lighting and control system. How about this one? Eaton. Cutler Hammer, Eaton. I'm sure you guys know who that is. If Tom Dimitrovich is watching, they'll tell you, oh yeah, man, we got PoE. Everybody's got PoE. The big boys have gotten into PoE. Now, a lot of people struggle to understand the scale of the impact this is going to have. This is a data center. Okay, so if you look on the screen right here, you're going to see a data center. Every single light you see in that ceiling is powered by power over Ethernet. That's not 277. It's not 120. That is power over Ethernet lighting in the ceiling of a data center. Every single floor of that data center has this exact same setup. And there's a little closet somewhere in a corner somewhere. I don't know if this is the closet here, the closet's over here. Somewhere there's a closet that's got a PoE switch with some cables running out to those lights, and they didn't need a certified licensed electrician to hook them up. Now, maybe somebody had to pull a permit. I don't know. Maybe, I know some of my friends that are in the union are like, hey, we still require to be a licensed electrician to install it. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You can't require it if they don't know about it. A lot of these, and we'll see later, they make it really easy. You don't even need to know anything to do this stuff. This is what we're used to for lighting control, right? Going to a hotel, convention center, conference room. We've got all these, I think those might be some strand lighting control panels or something like that. That's the de facto standard for years. Churches, it's going to get replaced with that. I mean, you got you a little router, You got your little PoE switch, some cables coming in there. You're done. They don't need it. Oh, you guys still have a job. They need a 120 volt outlet to power that rack. Just one though, and that'll run a lot of lights. You're like, well, yeah, but there's a lot of kind of lights it probably doesn't run. Really? Well, let's just run down the list here. This is from a website here. Let's see. This is all PoE lighting. Everything on this page is PoE lighting. Decorative lighting, lamps, wall sconces, wall washer lights. You know what? Let me just show you. Recessed cans. We can all kind of put that in perspective. All of those, PoE. No 120, no 277, low voltage, plug in a network cable. PoE. I mean, whether you want to pick something, and whether this is your style or not, it's irrelevant. Decorative. These are decorative lights. You got some troffers. Here's a recessed basket troffer. Here's your parabolic, regular lay-in flat panel. How about these? Instead of linear fluorescence, you got linear LEDs now. Well, these are power over Ethernet. Pendant hung, recessed, color shapes. LED, man, change the lighting industry. You can have a light any shape you want now, and just make the shape and put LEDs in it. They're done. This is power over Ethernet. See, here's the thing about an LED, and you may or may not know this. LEDs run off of DC power. So it's a lot easier to run LEDs off of power over Ethernet than it is to run it off of AC power. If we bring AC power to a light fixture, we have to have this big thing called a driver, LED driver. And it's got to take the AC power, it's got to convert it to DC, and then depending if you want to be able to control it, there's got to be some circuit in there, and that circuit's got to be able to do something with either the AC or the DC side. And if we decide we want to dim the AC side, they got to build more circuitry in to make it so the DC side doesn't make the light flicker. It's complicated. This is easy. It's all DC. It's native to the LED. So it's very easy for them to control this lighting. How about these? You're going to need wall plugs in the hotels and the hospitals for the table lamps. And no. Right there. Table lamps. Those are all PoE. There's pages of these, by the way. I just happened to grab a few, and I listed one of the sites that I found in the links at the end, but just Google it up, PoE over Ethernet. Probably some of you guys are doing it right now. Now, Ryan said, hey, one of the guys was asking about emergency lights and exit lights, and we're going to get to some questions here in a second. Number one question I have. Well, what about if these guys, that's fine, they have all this fancy lighting, but what about the exit lights and what about the emergency lights? That tells me you're actually grabbing at straws. You already gave up on the receptacles, you already gave up on the overhead lighting, you already gave up on the computers, and so now you're like grasping, yeah, well, I'm still going to get to hook up the emergency and exit lights. No, these are all PoE. We got your edge lit, we got your bug eye. I actually don't even know why the bug eye looks like a bug eye, because the reality is it doesn't need to, but probably it's just really inexpensive to do it that way. You got your standard LEDs. I mean, this is the real deal. Guys, this is not going away. Do you see what is on this screen? If you don't know about this technology, you need to get educated. That's the number one thing you can do in this industry to be successful. Mike Holt, let me tell you about Mike Holt. Every single day with Mike Holt, I get a phone call. Hey, you're not going to believe what I found out, discovered, thought about every single day. Constantly learning, constantly getting educated. And that's how we as a company stay on the top of our game. It's the same thing for you. When I was an electrical contractor, let me tell you how I handled that. Not every day, because, you're busy. Life's tough. I had a stack of trade magazines on my desk that I couldn't get to. And I got to be honest with you, a lot of times I was in a huge hurry when I had time to look at them. And I would just take a trade magazine out and I would open it up and I would look at the pictures. And I would see new stuff. And as soon as something caught my eye, ooh, what's that? I called the supply house. Hey, do you have one of these? I want to try it out. But I was constantly becoming educated on what was new in the industry, how it could give me a competitive edge over the people that I was competing against, and how I could better serve my customer. And I learned all of that by constantly trying to learn. This is a technology you got to learn. Just took away your LED exit lights. I just took away your bug eyes. Decorative lights. Some people have asked, hey, is this going to hit a house? Yeah. Yeah. In fact, it may have already started creeping in and we didn't even know it. Now, I'm not telling you that you're not going to have to put in your receptacles every 6 feet, 12 feet. I'm not telling. There's things that PoE right now won't handle. Understood? But I'm going to tell you 5 years ago, none of this stuff existed. This is all new. And this market is exploding. Wall sconces, these are outdoor lighting. Outdoor lighting. Think about this. Think about your LED flashlight. How many watts is that LED flashlight? Not very many. 1, 2. Well, we were talking about some of the mid-range LED stuff being 60 watts. There's been, and I don't know where we're at, maybe one of you guys could tell me, there's been discussions of having up to 100 watts available on a single Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable to deliver power to power over Ethernet devices. Imagine 100 watts of LED. And I don't have you guys like, oh yeah, well, what's the distance limitation on that? It doesn't matter because they don't have to pay you to install it. They go to the store, they buy a box full of prefabricated cables, probably that are UL listed even. They could probably even get listed cables. They go up in the ceiling and they just start plugging stuff together. Bing, 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 bing. I don't know, maybe someplace, Chicago, maybe New York City, New Jersey. I'm sure they're going to require permits, but then there's going to be a lot of places that they won't. So you guys that are in the cities where you need permits, you have all the electricians, and then the rest of the world's not going to have any electricians needed because it's all going to be low voltage power over Ethernet. One guy was like, hey, well, what about motion lights outside? So I'm just being a curious guy that I am. I whipped out my phone. I plugged in PoE motion detector light. Bink. Popped right up. What I'm telling you guys is this is coming. It's coming strong. This is not something that's going away. And here's the reason why. Labor shortage, right? We don't have enough guys to do the job fast enough. We're too expensive. Think about it. You guys have been battling with the IT guys and the low voltage guys since it came out. Oh, there's low voltage guys. My company was unique. We had both in the company. And so we kind of embraced both sides of it because we could. Well, you might want to start being nice to those IT guys and those low voltage guys that you've been saying all those bad things about all those days. You might want to, hey, buddy, how you doing? Can I take you to lunch? Because at least you can install the cable for them. And then they can just terminate it. Listen, it's a beautiful thing if everybody gets to do what they want to do. What if you get to run the raceway? You get to pull the cables, and you get to walk off the job. You're happy. You still got to do an installation. The IT guy, the cabling guys, they're like, oh, well, then we'll just come in and certify it and connect it and program it. And as an electrician, me personally, I wanted all of it. I didn't want to give any of it away. But maybe you're like, yeah, that works for me. He's got his piece of the pie. I got my piece of the pie. Life is good. Might be something to think about. Let me tell you why it's easy to the end user. Here's some documentation. I believe this is from Ubiquiti's Unify system. And that was one of those first power over Ethernet switches I showed you. Well, look at this. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. I don't know if that's what their slogan is, but look, you got step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1, you take it out of the box and you plug the cable in. Step 2, you plug in the dimmer switch. Step 3, you program your phone and start controlling it. It does not get any easier than that. There is nothing we do as an industry that's this simple. Just nothing. And here's the thing. You ever taken your clients and cut a piece of conductor, set a pair of conductors, a hot and a neutral, and it was still on by accident or on purpose, one of the two. Hopefully not on purpose, but maybe. And you end up with like a perfect set of like number 10 or number 12 strippers right in the blade of your clients. When you cut this stuff, a little computer goes, no, that shouldn't be happening. Let's turn the power off to that. And even if it didn't, it can only deliver a very small amount of power. That's what that Class 2 and Class 3 is all about. It can only deliver a certain amount of power. And I'm not going to get into that, but maybe read the code, get some education on what Class 2 and Class 3 circuits are. Because of that, it's safe. And if you plug it in and there's something wrong with the light fixture, the computer goes, oh, I actually can't turn on. I'm sorry. Not, maybe we don't see this as much anymore, but you guys remember the old fluorescent ballasts where you knew there was a problem when the tar started dripping out of the ballast onto the lens of the fixture? Or you smelled it, right? You smelled it. That's the other reason. You're not going to be having things catching on fire. You're not going to be seeing things burning down. I mean, this is going to be huge, huge paradigm shift. Plus, these guys are smart. They're like, hey, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, and look at all the money we can save you. That's right. Today and today only, if you put in a PoE lighting system, right? And then they put together this beautiful little chart. As electricians, we're not good at putting these things together and getting them to our customers. The guys that are doing all this technology stuff, that's their business. Their business is very customer focused, instant delivery, performance based. There you go. I mean, this office right here, there's no 277, there's no 120 volt lighting. That's PoE lighting. They have lights for workstation lighting. They've got fans, computers. I mean, you're looking at this, like, I don't see anything in this entire image that would need power. Nothing. The closet in the back where the switch is at. That's it. So what's the public saying about power over Ethernet? Well, I actually pulled these quotes directly off of some of the marketing materials online by PoE equipment manufacturers. They're saying, hey, it eliminates the need for that certified electrician and it saves you time and money. I kind of take that offensive, personally. I'm a master electrician in several states. I'm a third-generation master electrician. I grew up in this trade. I mean, I was bending EMT and rigid. I mean, my rite of passage as a man was when I bent my first piece of 1-inch rigid with a hand bender and a 10-foot stick 1.25 inches. You guys that have ever done that know exactly what I'm talking about. You don't need that for this stuff. Network cables can be located anywhere. I mean, this is a big one. Seriously, like, you don't need a license to be able to plug in a network cable. People do it every day of the week. PoE delivery is intelligent. It's designed to protect equipment. All true. It's a computer protecting everything from overload, underpowering, incorrect installation, and line voltage hazards. It comes from a central source that can be backed up by an uninterruptible power supply and controlled easily. Control it from your phone. I got actually a PoE control app on my phone. Battery backed up. Think about it. That UPS that you normally use to back up your computer, it backs up a PoE switch and no interruption of power. Emergency lights, exit lights. By the way, those ones that I had on the previous slide, those have batteries in them. Because a lot of guys, oh yeah, well you can't power that with PoE because what happens when the power goes out? Well, it's actually got the same battery in it that it would have had if it was line voltage, but it's power over Ethernet powered instead. So I'm gonna, let's see. Don't really have time for this last video, but what I am gonna do is I'll make this available to you guys. And Ryan, do we have any questions that have come in yet?
We've got a couple. One was asking about smoke alarms and burglar alarms.
Okay, so question about smoke alarms and burglar alarms. So here's where I'm going to probably just, I'm not going to directly answer this question, and I'll tell you why. Smoke alarms and burglar alarms have been low voltage for decades. So the need to have these as PoE is not a big need. Now, I'm not telling you they won't do it. In fact, I'm not sure if matter of fact, Ryan, why don't you Google real quick, just Google PoE smoke detector. I got so Mike is out playing, and so I had our instructor support guy, Ryan Carlson, works for me. Great guy. If any of you guys are instructors, especially if you use our digital platform, which if Mike doesn't come back next week, I don't know if he will. He's out there having enough fun, he might not. But if you guys come next week and Mike's not back, I'm going to give you guys a sneak peek into some of the really cool new software we spent the last couple of years writing. It's awesome. If you're an instructor, you do not want to miss it. But smoke detectors, security, all that stuff, it's already low voltage. And so power over Ethernet is not really a big need. They've already got those things available using low voltage wiring methods. Not saying they wouldn't have something, and my guess is very soon they probably will. I do know they have internet-connected fire alarm systems, so it's a possibility. They have internet-connected security systems that actually use Ethernet cables to communicate with. So this is not outside the realm of reality. What was the other question, Ryan?
We had burglar alarms.
Burglar alarm, yep, security. Okay, what else?
And there's asking about copper clad. There's an interesting discussion regarding Cat 5, Cat 6, copper clad issues with possible warranties.
Okay, so there's come to me full screen, Brian. So there's a lot of discussion on cable types, and you can really get off into the weeds with this stuff. And here's what I'll tell you. There's a question about, is copper clad aluminum versus copper, and warranties and this and that. This industry is a segment of our industry at large. This would be like somebody that does gas stations. This would be like somebody that does a lighting specialist that goes in and retrofits lights, or a sign specialist, or somebody like that. If you guys are going to get into this industry, you need to get educated. And not just about the code, because the code's a very important part of this, but you're going to have to be educated about products. You're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to research. And you might say, you know what? I'm not interested. I've been doing this for 30, 40 years. I don't want to learn anything else. I got good news for you. Chances are you got at least 5 or 10 years. I'm sure they're not going to get rid of us all in 5 or 10 years. So if you got 5 or 10 years left in your career, pretty safe gamble, you're going to be okay. And somebody does have to put in the plug for the power over Ethernet switch. So somebody's going to have a job. What I will tell you is this. If you're looking at, you got 30, 40 years left in the trade, maybe you want to look into this. If you're like, I'm just tired of doing what I'm doing, I want something new, maybe you want to look into this. There's a lot of discussions online. Again, email me, brian@mikeholt.com. And I will be happy to send this to you. And if you guys run across any information that I haven't run across, please feel free to send it to me, because I'd love to be able to share it with other people. So, Ryan, we got any more questions?
Looks like you pretty much have answered them.
Okay. So, looks like we've answered questions. I was really hoping that Mike was going to call in and kind of do a little FaceTime from the top of a mountain in Colorado. Doesn't look like we're going to get that done. Here's what I will tell you guys. If you have not done so already, 2 things. Number 1, go to mikeholt.com/live. If you go to mikeholt.com/live and post your questions, after the show's over, Mike and I always review the questions, and we try to get back to you to answer the questions, and or alternately, what we may do is cover it next week. So if you've got a pressing question you have to have an answer to, go to mikeholt.com/live and post it. For those of you guys that are watching, and maybe you haven't been watching every week, you might have missed this, but we actually have a discount code. For those of you guys that are watching the show, it's only for the people that are watching the show. If you didn't watch it, you wouldn't know what it is, but it's live, LIVE. And that'll get you a discount on any of the products on our website that are included in the special. And I believe it's all the libraries. So that would be anything that has a book and videos with it. We have just got some great libraries. And I have to tell you guys, I work here because I want to, not because I have to. I was an electrical contractor, had a great company. I did really enjoy being a contractor. And Mike offered me this job, and I was like, wow, an opportunity to work for Mike Holt. I got that job because I stayed educated. I was constantly learning and training and studying. I want to encourage you to do the same thing. And these opportunities, these discounts, they aren't forever. So you really should take the opportunity, if you can, to just kind of look forward to education. If you haven't done so, sign up for our newsletters. We send out discounts there too. So if you missed the live discount, you're like, oh, not quite ready, sign up for our newsletters. Lots of great information, and we throw specials out there as well. So Ryan, if we don't have any more questions, I think we're going to call it a night. Guys, I had a blast. It was a good time. If Mike's back next week, I actually have no clue what we're going to talk about. If I'm back next week, we're going to talk about more cool stuff having to do with technology and some of the neat products that we're developing here at Mike Holt Enterprises. Until next week, be safe.